What would you say there's something that, about being incarcerated?
I think a lot of people don't understand what people's lives were like prior to prison. A lot of people came from tremendous situations of abuse.
What was the hardest part about starting over?
Like the acceptance, like still knowing that I had really embarrassed my family. My younger sister, she didn't talk to me for 6 months.
What's the vision for Comeback Snacks in the next 5 years?
Comeback Snacks in the next international. I want to go all around the world, but I also want to eventually have a fund. I want to have a comeback capital fund.
Someone watching this right now is at their lowest point. What would you tell them?
I would say that life is truly a gift. It's just luck that we're on this planet, and I think there's so much to offer as a human being. And
my today's guest was arrested at an airport with cocaine strapped to her body. She spent 4 years in prison, and while she was in there, she saw women making popcorn with whatever spices that they could find. That's when she thought, this is a business I could build. Today, her company, Comeback Snacks, is in over 1,000 stores across US and Canada. This is the inspiring journey of Emily O'Brien. My today's guest was arrested at an airport with cocaine strapped to her body. She went to prison for 4 years. And while she was inside, she watched women around her make popcorn with whatever spices they got. And suddenly she thought, that's a business idea I could build. Today, Comeback Snacks is in over 1,000 stores across Canada and US. She owns 100% of the company.
Well, partnership, right? So 50%.
Okay.
Close enough.
She's never taken a loan.
Yes.
Right? And you never had an outside investment.
Just until last year.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. But for the first 5 years, no. Bootstrapped it for a very long time.
Awesome. This is Emily O'Brien. Emily, before we start, again, I would like to thank you for coming over here and sharing your story with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I want to jump to something really specific. I did some research of mine, and take me to that Super Bowl Sunday in 2018 where it all started.
Yeah, it was Super Bowl Sunday, and in prison, you kind of celebrate the little things. You celebrate people's birthdays and events, and people make cakes. And Super Bowl Sunday, everyone was kind of making their favorite things, their favorite, home-cooked meals, just to make it kind of like the home-cooked environment. I was in a medium security facility, so we cooked all of our own food. And so we had access to pots and pans and things like that. And people would make, I think people had chips and stuff like that. And I got some kernels off the canteen. So I was able to buy this through the prison canteen. And then making someone else put lemon pepper and dill on the popcorn. And it was just the best popcorn I ever had. And I just never even thought about that. I just usually just put butter and salt, or coconut oil. Some of that. I also put mac and cheese powder on my popcorn. And I called it jailhouse cheese.
Wow.
Yeah, but so it was that Super Bowl Sunday where we're all just adding our own recipes and talking about our insecurities, what we were going to do when we got out, and talking about employment and how much of a challenge it was going to be, despite having done your time and paid back your debt to society. It's still very challenging. I mean, the employment market today is challenging enough, right? So just to have a conviction on there where you're still passed over makes it really hard. And so I was like, well, when I met people in there, I just saw them as people, as humans, we aren't our worst mistake. And so that's why I wanted to create something, and it ended up being a popcorn company because I love the ingenuity and I loved how creative people were with it, but also, how badly people wanted a second chance and wanted to be seen and forgiven, right? So that's how Comeback Snacks was born, behind bars.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So when did it become from this is fun to something like this is business?
When I started developing logo designs, and I actually talked to a couple people on the outside, like my mom and my current now business partner. He's been on since day one, which is amazing. Yeah. But he's kind of started he had a full-time job at the time, but he, now he's full-time with us with Comeback Snacks. So he made the switch. But yeah, it was, then we would discuss logo designs. I would look up food recipes, food trends. I would call my mom and ask her, what book should I read? And then I would order those books from the local library because the prison had this partnership with the Kitchener Public Library. And so you could order books that were modern to kind of read. And so that's when it all started. And I was laser focused.
So you were still in prison doing your time. we're still planning a business when you go outside.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of free time, right? So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Well, that's the best use of time, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right. So, what would you say there's something that about being incarcerated that people get confused about, or they misunderstand?
I think a lot of people don't understand what people's lives were like prior to prison. A lot of people came from tremendous like situations of abuse, right? Or addiction, like in their family, or they were raised into an environment of crime and they might not even like wanted to be raised in that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but a lot of people I met in there, they suffered tremendously. And then that's why they developed, maybe it was a drug addiction or something like that led them to commit certain crimes. And it was actually really sad. I felt really lucky to have the support that I had. I had my parents to visit, and I had like a lot of friends to come visit. And a lot of people didn't have that. They were just told by everyone that, they're worthless. And so it's very hard to believe in yourself, right? When you're just kind of told that every single day.
So how did you get through that time in prison? Did you have people around you?
Yeah.
Who were supporting you?
Yeah, and like it was a two-way street, right? Like we became very close, a tight-knit group. Obviously I was closer with some other inmates than others, and some I'm really good friends with today. Some actually work with Comeback Snacks still today.
That's great.
Yeah, and so I actually, because I read so many books in prison, I wrote letters to all the authors, and so I began to build up a mentorship network.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I know you mentioned about writing.
Yeah.
I've heard about a piece that you wrote, The Relatively Wealthy Inmate.
Yes.
Tell me about that. I think that's pretty close to your business outside, right?
Yeah. So David Chilton, he was a former dragon on Dragon's Den, and that was actually on TV a lot when I was in prison. And so I'd watch it like whenever it was on, and that's another way that I kind of taught myself all these skills, and I would intake all this knowledge. And his book, he just re-released The Wealthy Barber like this year, and it's amazing. You should check it out. But they only had the original version in 2016 or 2018, sorry. And so I just I read the book and I wrote this article how I managed like my $7 a day in inmate pay, and like actually ended up having like some sort of savings, because that's what you get for your daily salary is like $7 a day.
Okay.
Minus tax. You still pay tax in prison. So it's like, how did I manage like that? Like, obviously, you're not saving a lot, but, and he just loved the article. And so I had this email address set up. So, and then my mom would check it when I'd call her to be like, check my email. And so Dave wrote to that email address, Dave Chilton. And he's like, when you get out, call me and let me know. And so I actually talked to him yesterday. He's still a great friend and has really helped along the way to, helping with Comeback Snacks.
Yeah. So that support came along throughout your journey, from inside and outside.
Yes.
And that helped you kind of reintegrate into society really well. Was it hard? I don't want to go back to those.
That's okay.
Yeah. But...
I'll be honest. The hardest part for me was the time before prison. Because you're arrested and you don't know what's happening. Like, I didn't grow up in that world, and neither did my family. I was an honor roll student, and so it was very scary for us. And I was living in, extreme paranoia. So that was the worst part. By the time I went to prison and I began to read all these other success stories prior to going into prison, and I continued to do this. So I had this motivation that like all these other people can do it. And that's another way that I built my network, was reading these other success stories. And so when I got to prison, I was actually excited. I was excited to take on this challenge, because at that point, I had figured I'd already gotten through the worst of like the isolation and the house arrest and the money, legal fees, embarrassment, shame. I'd already gotten through the worst part, in my opinion. Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say a lot of people, they don't really, who haven't experienced that, they don't really understand a lot of times, what people go through. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is, I feel it's really great because it brings out real stories. Mm-hmm. And it also shows potential that you can really come back mm-hmm. from those situations. Someone who's at their lowest in their life can definitely, do anything, like build a great company like yourself.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Great. Yeah. So it's a fun question, maybe. What's one thing about prison that would surprise a lot of people?
That's one thing that would surprise. A lot of us really got along. Like I would say there wasn't as much violence as people think. I mean, I was also in a medium security, so everyone in there was not convicted of violent charges. I mean, there was more higher security prisons, but for the most part, there was not really any violence, at least like that I was involved with. So, I mean, everyone for the most part was pretty nice.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
got friends with like everyone pretty easily.
Yeah, I think
Wasn't
people
there-
thought I was like the class clown because they were just like, "What are you doing in here?" Like, you know, and I was just la di da, like every day, just getting through each day, and I was just trying to find something good about every day. So I was able to kind of make a lot of friends because I just brought this like joy that I don't think it's not really present in prisons.
So when you told the other inmates that you were thinking to start a company,
Yeah.
what was their reaction?
Oh, they thought I was crazy. Absolutely. Like a lot of people thought I was crazy. They're like,
Yeah.
no one's going to buy popcorn from an inmate. But another thing that I studied was, all this prison reform that was happening all over the United States, and they are really, leading the way in prison reform. So if I had been arrested in 2005, even 2010, I think it would have been very different. But now there is this big movement. You see like Jay-Z and stuff. Everyone's involved in these big like prison reform movements to help people. So I was in prison at the perfect time. If I had to choose, I would choose to go then.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, so you did your time. You come back. You are outside, and you had this thought about building comeback snacks. What did day one look like when you came out of prison?
What did day one look like?
Yeah.
Well, I had to get a real job first. Like I couldn't just start a company because your parole officer, they want you to have a job with a paycheck that they can look at and make sure you're getting funds from legit places. Just because a lot of people in prison are there for drug trafficking and stuff. So they want to make sure that you're supporting yourself with legitimate income. But I got a job at the gym because I was like, okay, maybe also when people start to go to the gym, they're trying to get healthy or starting over. So that's kind of why I chose the gym. And I've always been very active. Like exercise has been part of like my therapy, was a part of my therapy since day one, right? And so I knew that that was also going to be good for me to work, and I could work out there for free if I worked there. So I was also saving on my gym costs.
Awesome.
With the post-prison budget, it's not that high, right? So I was able to build comeback snacks at the same time that I was working there because I would run into my old teachers that I went to high school with, and I would be speaking in the classes, and they had some open houses the gym had, and they let me like give out samples of the popcorn.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you got the job at the gym. How hard was that, or was it pretty easy?
So yeah, I did a very interesting tactic, and I didn't know if it was going to work, but I had all these jobs when I was inside prison. My first job was like I picked up garbage. The second job I had was like landscaping in the summer, and then I graduated to carpentry. And so I got to work with a staff member there and just do all these like repairs around the prison when like there'd be like fires. I don't know, things would happen. So there'd be incidents and things that needed repair. And so I learned all these skills like drywall and installing lights and stuff. So I put all these little jobs that I had on this resume, and I put my inmate number on there, and I put on the cover letter for the gym. I was like, I just got out of prison. I was there for drugs charges, and I'm looking for a second chance. But I literally put my prison inmate number on it next to my name with all my prison jobs.
Okay.
And it worked.
It worked how? Like
they hired me. Like I just went in there and I explained my situation, and I think they really loved the honesty, and I think that's what honestly a lot of employers want is someone that's going to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's a great thing because I've seen with my startup as well. Like honesty is like one thing that's hard to find. You can find skills, but people are they don't want to be honest for some reason. So coming out in an honest way and asking for help, I think it's a great thing to do. Yeah,
and like I'm not sure if obviously every employer is not going to be that way, but because gyms are again, it's all about starting over, and that's essentially what I was doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did so you started comeback snacks while you were working at this gym?
Yeah, well, even inside prison, I was working on the plans, right?
So how did that come up? Like, how did it, scale up? How did it grow?
Yeah, so I started in the halfway house kitchen because when I was out on parole, so my sentence was 4 years. And so within a year, I was eligible for day parole because I followed all the rules, I didn't mess up. So it's like the legal amount of time that I had served to be, considered for this. And because I had no incidents in prison, I was granted day parole. Everyone is able to get it if they, don't mess up. And so I was living in a halfway house. So I kind of started there, the Colonels. And I shared the story with the local paper because I knew that I wanted to be the owner of my story, and I wanted to control the narrative and, to say it from my point of view. Because unfortunately, we do live in a world where people just will talk bad about you, if
Right.
like and try to cancel you, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm just gonna get out in front of this and be like, this happened. And it ended up being one of the most read articles of the entire year in the Hamilton Spectator. And so like the Toronto Star picked it up, and then another outlet that the Toronto Star owns. They own a bunch of the papers, and then I started getting invited on talk shows, and so it was like a lot out of the gate. And yeah, so a lot of people were really supportive. There's always going to be people that are like naysayers, but
Yeah.
I kind of liked it.
That's great. And how did you land your first retail deal?
First retail deal, I would say it was a little store, a medium-sized store in Dundas, Ontario. And so that's kind of a subdivision of Hamilton. And they heard about the story. And so the person that read the story, like his son operated the store. It's called the Horn of Plenty. And he's like, why don't you go in there and sell your product there? And I went in and introduced myself. And, he's like, yeah, my dad told me all about you. And we actually ended up doing a deal with them where we could pop the popcorn inside this grocery store.
Okay.
And I would actually help them with their social media because I had some background in that.
Yeah.
So that was our first one in good old Dundas, Ontario.
Wow. Well, the first ones are always, like nostalgic. You still go back to that store?
Yeah. Well, they closed. They have a cookie dough business now.
Oh, okay.
But they have a place, and their cookie dough place is in Hamilton Farmers Market. So whenever I'm in Hamilton, I'll try to visit and say hi because, they were very instrumental in helping us grow.
Nice. And how did you end up, being at the big boxes like Sobeys, Metros? How did that deal come up?
Yeah. So I was at a birthday party. It was like, I don't know, I guess 5 years ago now. And I met this guy, his name was JC, and he worked for a lasagna company called Mama Yolanda's out of Hamilton. And he's like, yeah, you got to get in with the local program at Sobeys. And so he's telling me all about this local program. So it's like smaller companies that are trying to grow bigger. And so he actually introduced me to the contact at Sobeys. And we went from there. So Sobeys was our first kind of big box retailer, I would say.
That's great.
Yeah.
Most people, it's hard for them to kind of, approach these big enterprises, and let alone being on their shelves. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, really hard to get in touch with them. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give? Like, where do people start if they want to approach some big enterprises to sell something?
I would attend as many industry events as you can. Even if it's just like a food show, you can always go in and ask like every vendor their steps, right? Most businesses, like, you want to help other people. You want to see other people succeed. Everyone's had help to get to where they are. And I just find the consumer packaged goods industry is one that is very gracious and kind. And so, yeah, just attend a food show. A couple, for example, in Toronto, there's like the Restaurants Canada show. There's the One of a Kind show. There's Canadian Health Food Association show. So there's all these little food events that you can go to and start asking questions, and you'll figure out the steps. Yeah.
So not everything must have been nice. There must be some rejections.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So what was the most humiliating rejection?
Well, a lot of stores we don't get into because of like the ingredients, like we're just like not healthy enough. So like the Healthy Planets, that's where I went to develop a new line. We're developing like a savory line because some stores it's a sweeter product, so some stores are just gonna be like, no. Mm-hmm. One time we didn't realize it and we accidentally sold expired product to like a hospital, which is not good considering it's a hospital. Okay. But we
That's
just I know. Yeah. It's not our proudest moment, but it was like it wasn't expired product, but it was like 1 week. It had like 2 weeks left, and then it was a bad clerical error. So that was definitely not so good.
Awesome. So have you had incidents where you go and you're trying to partner up with, let's say, another big box, and they kind of Google your story. Has it hit you sometime as in a bad way?
No,
Never?
Like, I think because we also had a lot of traction before I approached the big box stores.
Right.
So there was already so many articles out there of like people just loving the story and the mission behind the brand that we already had some cushioning. So, you know, of course, there's going to be people that, you know, have maybe known someone that's been a victim of something bad or drugs. You know, there's always someone that I meet that has maybe like lost someone due to addiction, and, you know, obviously, so they feel very strongly about drugs and drug trafficking,
Right.
which is fair. You know, like I ruined my own life, like, well, I messed up my own life with drugs, so like I can understand. But in terms of like getting into a store, it's actually been a way to get in. It's been like an exciting factor for them.
Okay.
Yeah, especially like with Walmart. We're launching with Walmart, and I was at this event, and like I want to meet the CEO, so I found this event that she's speaking at, and I was able to get a free ticket. And so I just sat right at the front, and I waited until she was done talking, and I brought a postcard, a sample bag, and like a handwritten note all about my story, because Walmart really supports second chances, second chance hiring, so hiring people with records.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally got a call the next day. So now we're launching Walmart in like a couple months.
Oh, that's great! Congratulations.
I know.
So just want to steer a little bit towards the business side of the company.
Yeah.
So you said until recently you never raised investment.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of bootstrapped it through a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So do you mind sharing up until what revenue were you able to bootstrap it?
How
Up until what stage were you able to bootstrap your company?
Until we needed to be in the big box stores. Like,
Okay.
so it's about 2 years ago. So we didn't raise it. We didn't need a big amount.
Mm-hmm.
But we raised 500,000.
Okay, that's not huge.
Yeah. So
So how were you able to bootstrap it? Like, what are the tactics behind not raising? Because everyone's like raise funds, especially in tech. So how were you able to do that?
Number one, the story was a big asset for marketing. So like, you know, we're here today because we like to share the story of building it, right? And so I spent a lot of time going on podcasts and doing interviews and getting the exposure that way, and something that didn't actually cost a dollar value. I mean, like my time, but that was something that I did. I would speak at schools. I'd volunteer to speak at events. Right. And so kind of building it that way is like, you know, you're not paying per click or something like that, right? So, and you can meet so many people that way. Also going to a lot, you know, just like a lot of events and sharing my story. Maybe it's like one-on-one, just being out there consistently, being in front of the story and meeting as many people as I could. And the other one was like I was able to barter. Like, so with the kitchen space, you know, the kitchen space is so expensive to rent. Before I got to that grocery store and they're like, let's barter for the space, we were renting at a commercial kitchen, and that was like $20 an hour, you know? So it's very hard to scale when you're paying those rates. So I was able to always barter skills if you can, for sure.
So good bargaining skills is something you require.
Yeah, like there's always something that you can offer.
Yeah.
So try to find things that you can offer. And
Awesome. What was the inflection point from going to small stores to the big boxes? Like, when did your company shoot off?
It was actually during COVID, and that's when we had to find a manufacturing partner.
Okay.
So we actually grew a lot because everyone was like buying more stuff at home. And I created this accidental marketing campaign by like, I ended up just, because I was still delivering product myself and taking orders, and people were very, you know, they were very depressed during that time. You know, there was a lot of polarization around, you know, even amongst friends, and people had a lot of anxiety. And so I was able to actually be out because I was an essential business when most people weren't allowed out. So it's like, here's the girl from prison that's allowed out. So I was able to like do like kind of like coaching when I did these interviews, because sometimes people have kids that were really struggling, and I was like, listen, like, you know, this is what I did when I was at my worst time. And so this word kind of spread of me, like just talking to parents or people for like 5-10 minutes and kind of just giving them like my learnings that I had from inside, right? And how you can actually create so much when you're inside.
And what was the hardest part of running a CPG company that a lot of, you know, especially in tech in my world, people don't understand?
You need volume. You need volume because there are so many costs. Like So working with the big box stores, like it's nice to have a little business where you can sell to small stores, but in order to make good money, like you need to grow the business because you need to pay into all these programs with the big box retailers, like discounts. If you want to be on like the end shelf, you have to pay for flyers, listing fees. It's like the price you pay to be in the store. And so that's in order for us to actually, and then you have to pay. So you pay to get it on the shelf, but then you also have to pay to get it off the shelf. And that's, so you have to do a lot of demos, so demonstrations, because that's the quickest way to sell the product. And luckily we have a product that people love. I'm not like, sampling like carrots or something, where like, people try it and they usually like want to buy it. Right. But you have to have expensive, you have to have money to cover all those fees, right? So yeah, bigger stores come with bigger bills.
So what's the cycle like? So if you put the product on the shelf, do the stores pay you beforehand, or do you get paid after the product is sold?
They pay you after if they make a purchase order. So our distributor actually makes purchase orders from us, and then Sobeys will buy from them. So there's always, and then so they take a percentage of the revenue, right? So everyone gets a piece of the pie. Got it.
So it's a typical logistical cycle. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you hire people with records, obviously.
Yeah.
And how does that operationally work? Like, what does that look like in real life?
If people will read on our website, they'll just be like, "Hi, I'm looking for work," or some people will approach me at events. We're still like a small team, and we hire for certain roles. Obviously you need expertise for certain roles, right. But where I find these candidates really, really shine is in like talking to people. So, that's where I put them on doing the demonstrations, helping with sales, calling customers, and just building that rapport, because then it gets them to be able to share their story too. And I think that, it's also a good feeling when you can also, feel safe sharing your story, right? And then also see someone, be able to generate income for themselves and provide for their families.
And I know you rebranded from Cons and Kernels.
Yeah.
Tell me about that story. Why the rebrand?
So we actually realized it was alienating us, really, that name. Because okay, first of all, we're just saying that we're convicts when we're actually people. We were kind of making it worse, right? And then now it also restricted us in terms of if we wanted to diversify into different snacks, right? Mm-hmm. So if we were just Cons and Kernels, then we can only make popcorn. So we changed it so we could be, more universal, and then also expand in the category as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fair point, I guess. I think recently I had a branding lesson where that one point stood out, that if you want to pivot later in the time, having a sort of a more generic brand name, or generic brand name, and also the theme is much more relevant if you wanna pivot down the line.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part about starting over for you?
Hardest part about starting over, I think, was like the acceptance, like still knowing that I had really embarrassed my family, and because apologies and those things take a long time to earn back trust of your family. And so just working through that, like my younger sister, she didn't talk to me for 6 months, right? And so I had to repair those relationships, and I knew that I was going to do it, but I still felt so bad every day, and because they felt so bad. And I think that was the hardest part, was like just realizing how much hardship I put them through, and being like, okay, like this is going to take a lot of hard work, but I'm going to do it.
So how did that thing, over time you solved it with your family? How did that look like?
Committing to sobriety, obviously, abstinence of drugs, and really working towards being healthier so that like something like this won't happen again. But number one, it was like the lifestyle choices that I had to make. And that was hard because I was like on house arrest and I was very depressed. And I'll be completely honest, like I drank a lot still on house arrest, but I wasn't gonna mess up again. Like I made the decision about a year in that I was like stopping everything because it wasn't doing anything. But I was so mad, and I had to spend a lot of time being angry and mad in the beginning. I mean, if I wasn't, then I wouldn't really care, right? So obviously I had to spend a lot of time feeling bad and realizing that I really hurt them, but they were glad I was okay. But I still, they had to upend their life. Like I didn't want to live with my mom at 26 years old. You know what I mean? Like you're moving back out of Toronto. It's mortifying. You know, they're also worried about the financial aspects of the case, and they were recently divorced, my parents. So like that was a mess, and just a lot of stress was placed on them. So I didn't want to put them through that again.
Did you ever feel you had to work twice as hard than other people?
I mean, I deserved it. You know, of course I had to work twice as hard because I was the one that got myself into this mess, and maybe not all. I couldn't have controlled all things. Like I didn't orchestrate this whole drug smuggling scheme, but you know, there were things that happened prior to that you know, kind of needed me to change my behavior. Absolutely. Right. So I had to work harder. Yeah.
You recently launched Comeback Catalyst.
Yeah.
I really want to hear about that. And you're building something that you wished existed at your time.
Yes.
So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So Comeback Catalyst, it's a nonprofit. And this started out because I saw so much creativity and tenacity inside the prison walls. There was an entire prison economy. People would be creative with their services and bartering and this and that. And so people in prison already have a knack for business. And there's a lot of illegal businesses that land you in prison, right? So if you can take those skills and, you know, do something meaningful and legal, not only are you contributing to society, but you're contributing to the safety of others and you're contributing to your comeback. So I wanted to kind of teach what I learned and what I taught myself to other people, because a lot of time the first part of it is believing in yourself, and a lot of times people don't believe in themselves because again, what you're told you're a criminal, this, that, and I really wanted to help people harness those skills and transform the hustle. So we're going into the second year, and last year, you know, I launched it. I instructed every week. You know, I can't do that again this year, but I need to make sure that it worked and fix everything to make sure we had like a model that was going to work. And so you work at all the kinks and all that. Right. But we had 130 graduates last year.
That's great.
Yeah, and something so simple as a guy had an ATV and he bought up, we're like, what can you like use that you already have? And like, that's minimum investment, you know, or not any, like if you have a skill set that you can, right? Because, you know, I'm not going to tell people who are coming out of prison to like launch this massive company and try to take on all this debt, because that can cause more damage than good. Right. Especially when you come out of prison, you're already in so much financial hardship. So you want to kind of eliminate as much risk as possible. But he bought like a plow for his ATV, and now he's like booked solid, but like plowing snow, especially because all the snow. So it's something like that.
That's great. So what are some of the other stories that you can tell us from this catalyst?
Yeah, there's my friend Honey. She has a catering company. So it's Afro-Indigenous Fusions, and she actually won an award. So she's based up in Barrie, but I was actually inside with her. And she's very proud to be where she is. And, you know, it's so nice to see that, you know, she's using all these things that she's good at and being really creative and creating something that she loves and selling. And then we also have this guy, his name's Mark, and he has his event planning company. So he does brilliant event setups and stuff like that. He's based out in Brampton. And then there's another guy named James, and he was always really good at carpentry. So he started making these boxes like to put your green bins in outside, you know, like in your backyard. You don't want to like look at ugly garbage bins or whatever. Right. So he designs these really nice boxes for like cool. I
might get one for myself.
Yeah, exactly. So There you go. And if you go to the Comeback Catalyst website, there are some like businesses posted on there, but I can send you some of the other ones that people are doing. So the next cohort starts tomorrow night. So I'm going to be like kicking off the event and meeting all the entrepreneurs.
Awesome.
So it'll be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's the vision for Comeback Snacks in the next 5 years?
Comeback Snacks in the next international. I want to go all around the world, you know, but I also want to eventually have a fund. I want to have a Comeback Capital fund so that I can be an investor in some of these businesses, right, that are, you know, founded after incarceration. Because I think, again, there's so much talent and tenacity. And like when you go to prison, you've been through shit. Oh, can I swear?
Yeah.
You've been through a lot. Right? So like you're not going to get knocked down easy, you know? And so you also have that resilient element to yourself, right? So yeah, I think, you know, once people get situated and they have, you know, they've kind of passed through their addiction and they have housing and, you know, they're ready to go and they have stable, like I think if, you know, their business can be invested in, then it can be really impactful.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So someone watching this right now
Yeah.
is at their lowest point.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
I would say that life is truly a gift. It's such a, it's just luck that we're on this planet. And I think, there's so much to offer as a human being. And, there's going to be times in life where it's just awful. But once you get out of that, like the feeling of knowing that you did it you'll be unstoppable after that. So the day will come when you will find yourself that you just don't want to take it anymore. And you're just like, you're done with being in the rut. And I think anyone can do it. So you definitely can do it.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it.
That's great. Well, that brings us to the close.
Okay.
Thank you so much once again for coming here and sharing your story.
Of course.
We really wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Taking Comeback International.
Yes.
And
jet setter,
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks again, Emily.
Of course. Thank you so much.